First of all, welcome everybody to eCapital's webinar here for September PBCS updates. For those of you who may be new to our webinar series, it is presented by eCapital Advisors. We are a Minneapolis-based firm really focused on business analytics and advisory services type activities. We have well over 250 EPM and BI clients, and here is just kind of a sampling of some of the clients that we've worked with in the past. Speaking right now is myself, Ryan Kohler, and I'm also joined by Bob Ussett. We are really kind of driving the PBCS initiatives here at eCapital Advisors and are also the ones that really own the webinar process here. And just a review of what we're really trying to accomplish here with the PBCS webinar. As we know, Oracle releases monthly updates that include enhancements to the applications. We really want to get in here and test these new enhancements and test the new pieces of functionality out for you, so that you can join our webinar, figure out what's new with your implementation, and then be ready to go when it hits your production environment. So we basically do the testing for you, so you don't have to. So before we jump into the new features for September, we'll give a quick overview of PBCS, as we normally do. So PBCS is really Oracle's cloud-based planning budgeting service available to the user community, really providing a simplified interface, a really good job of organizing data in a consistent format, providing input forms along with business rules for real-time calculations, along with reporting and dashboarding that really help you provide analysis on your end state data. We also would like to remind you, don't forget about the EPBCS, the Enterprise Edition. Really comes with prepackaged modules, things like the financials module, CapEx, workforce, projects, and new from a few months ago, strategic modeling. So let's hop right into what's new for September. So one thing that's a little interesting is I think starting here in September, Oracle has changed the look and feel a little bit of their release readiness guide. Still includes a nice table of contents, but has certainly updated the logo here. So just an FYI there. And as a reminder, all of these updates went into our test environments on September 1st, and we'll go into production September 15th, so tomorrow. The first new piece of functionality here with the PBCS September updates, this is an important one. So this is the integrated navigation flows. So a few months ago, we had kind of given a little preview of what was coming down the pipeline as far as the springboarding effect for all of Oracle's cloud services. So this was really the ability to log into one environment and be able to hop back and forth from multiple applications. So if you were a client that had 3 PBCS applications, in the past, you would have had to actually log in individually to each of those applications. Potentially you could have had a different domain for those different applications. We can now create navigation flows, customized ones, that allow you to jump from application to application. So this is more than just PBCS to PBCS as well. You'll notice that the screenshot here on this slide shows details around the source, so where you can start your springboard from, and then your targets. So here, if you look, you can even go all the way to SDCS, tax reporting cloud solutions, all the way to reporting cloud solution too. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice this. I would like to call out one thing for this initial implementation. If you look there on the note, so this initial rollout, if these applications or if those instances are on different domains, then you would not be able to establish connections at this time. However, you can submit a ticket with Oracle to relocate them to the same data center. And the release readiness guide has provided information saying that Oracle plans to address this in the future and enable functionality or the springboarding effect between data centers. But Bob and I were talking about this, and we still think that it would probably be a good idea to request that all of your applications get moved to the same data center. Because if you think about it, you could run into some network and connectivity issues and slower performance if you're jumping data center to data center. I think the best example that we thought of is we've been on clients where the S-based server from an on-prem perspective is in one data center, and the planning server is in a different data center, and there's certainly some lagging effect that takes place and some data latency. So I think overall our recommendation would be to still make sure that all of your cloud applications are in the same data center. So that's the overall, I think, new piece of functionality. So along with that, I wanted to just have a couple slides walking through how to set up your connections. So before you actually can create navigation flow customized tabs there in your navigation flow to go application to application, you must actually select and create new connections here first. So that can be done here under the Tools navigation bar on your Simplified interface. And then these are the services that you can select in order to create that new connection. So if you look here, that basically aligns with that, that matrix that we showed on the prior slide. So once you select the connection type, you'll be prompted with some information here that you can fill out. And this is kind of equivalent to an on-prem creating a data source almost. So if you look there, you even have a validate for the administrator and password for that connection type. Once you're able to successfully validate that connection and then create it, then when you're in your PBCS application on the cloud, you can then connect individually right there, like the screenshot on the right shows, to all of the different connections that you've created. So basically, this is kind of step one, and then step two would be the ability to be able to create those custom navigation flows. And I do have just that same disclaimer here on the bottom, which I think is important to point out here. So overall, this is something that we've been waiting for a while. I think it can be a very powerful tool here in order to streamline your planning and budgeting. So you can actually have forms in one spot that jump application to application. So if you have two applications that integrate data to and from each other, you can actually connect all in one spot there. So pretty interesting deployment here. I'm interested to see where this goes to with future releases. I think we're going to see a lot of improvements as we go down the roadmap here. So the next piece here is really around the ability to expedite some of the Oracle service support. So this is actually something that I was not aware of in the past, but you can actually submit feedback directly to Oracle without submitting an SR first or service ticket. So at any point when you're logged into your application, if you run into any issues, let's say you're trying to leverage predictive planning or you're trying to leverage sandboxing and something is not working as you would expect it to, you can drop down the settings and actions menu in the top right of your screen, click provide feedback, and then you're going to be able to provide a quick snippet, a description of the issue that you're having, and then you can actually use the highlight and darken button to then highlight on the screen what the focus of your issue is. And then if you did have any sensitive information on that screen as well, you could darken or blacken it out. And that's what I'm trying to illustrate there on that top right screenshot. So that has actually been around for a few months now. I was actually not aware of that, but very, very interesting information there. I think it's an important thing for us all to keep in mind, especially if you're having any challenges with the tool itself. Now, this piece right here is the new piece of functionality that has come out with the September release. So before you submit the ultimate feedback menu there, you then get prompted here with a couple different options. This last piece here of confirming that application snapshot submission is the enhancement to this release. So basically, if you don't select anything, it will allow Oracle to leverage the most recent snapshot for your application, so that they can actually rebuild your application easily in their own environment and troubleshoot it on their own. So this is going to be a powerful tool for Oracle to be able to troubleshoot and expedite that troubleshooting process for you, and then you don't have to be as engaged during that process. So I would say that when you do submit this, there is actually no service ticket that gets created on the fly, but you do receive an email notification. The way we understand this is Oracle will investigate the feedback that you've provided, and if they deem it necessary for you to submit a ticket, they will then request that from you, and then everything that has been linked to your provide feedback submission will be attached to that ticket. So overall, this is just a good approach I think that Oracle is focusing on, trying to enhance the customer experience here for troubleshooting. So kind of cool functionality here. This next piece, you're now able to have support for single sign-on using Oracle Identity Cloud Services. So Oracle Identity Cloud Services is really kind of a one-stop shop for all of your login information for not only yourself but for your organization as a whole. So you can now leverage this, Oracle Identity Cloud Services to integrate with your PBCS applications. This screenshot here is just showing you what IDCS looks like if you were an organization that had it. And then I just provided some detail here in the next couple slides. Don't need to go through these in too much detail, but just providing some of the benefits and some of the big wins of using IDCS. So if you are an organization that's leveraging a lot of different Oracle Cloud products, I think this makes sense to really investigate and explore if it makes sense. you know, if you're an organization that may be just using PBCS or EPBCS, the juice probably isn't worth the squeeze there. But just something to point out here as we, you know, continue to move all of our, you know, analytics and reporting processes to the cloud. The next enhancement for the September release is around a simplified provisioning report. So you can access the provisioning reports like you always would by dropping down tools and then going into access control. And then you can click the provisioning reports tab of that menu. So in the past, they had some different columns. You know, really in order to see this very clearly for one user, you have to kind of export it to a CSV file, which is, I think is still useful. But here it's kind of nice. They give you basically the full role description here, you know, in that role column. So they're trying to provide to you a lot more detail all in one spot. So if you see here, you can see all the different roles this initial user has, as opposed to that second user in that screenshot. So just, you know, they've continued to enhance this provisioning report. I'm assuming it's probably just because of some feedback they've received from a variety of customers, but they'll probably continue to enhance this as we move forward through the roadmap. Along the same lines, they've also had some enhancements to the activity report. So again, this can be accessed by navigating to application and the overview tab. In the past, it was the top 10 user interface requests by execution that would provide in this pie chart, and basically trying to highlight the top 15 culprits of the slowest performing tasks within your application. So really an easy way for you to try to identify you know, where you're seeing some performance degradation with your system. So you have a very you know, isolated spot where you can find and pinpoint, you know, some of your potential problem areas and address them very quickly. So you get this nice pie chart as well as a kind of an Excel grid here as well. So just two different viewpoints of it, but I think they, just like the provisioning report, have continued to enhance the activity report reporting. So definitely a nice useful tool for the admins of the system. Along with the September release, they've also introduced a new REST API command. This one is specifically copy snapshot. So it seems like they're, you know, in general, the whole concept of snapshot backups has been a large focus of the PBCS applications and where Oracle's trying to go. And I know, you know, from a developer standpoint, I think, you know, Bob and I certainly appreciate the ability for these snapshots. Makes things much easier to restore applications, you know, perform migrations all in one spot, as opposed to an on-prem environment where, you know, you have to kind of create multiple extracts, know the order of, you know, how to upload them and import them. So this is really simplifying the overall process here. You know, I've included some basic information here on this new REST API command, but this is basically just providing you ability to copy a snapshot from one source into a target PBCS environment. So this would allow you to very easily, you know, move something from your test environment to production, for example. The last piece that's specifically focused on PBCS is around selecting identity domain and sign-in. So whether you were connecting to the web or connecting via SmartView and Excel, for some time now you've had to identify your domain first and then go through your login credentials. So this now you will no longer have to you know, type in your identity domain. It'll basically kind of skip that step and allow you just to log in with your credentials. So there's a nice streamlined process here, which will make for a better user experience. So those first few updates here are what we wanted to talk about regarding PBCS itself. I'm now going to hand things over to Bob here, and he's going to walk you through the enhancements in the September release around EPBCS.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so as Ryan was saying, everything Ryan just talked about was for all of us, whether we have the enterprise solution or not. The remaining 4 or 5 that we are going to cover here are only for us that leverage the enterprise out-of-box modeling. So that would be the financial, workforce, projects, CapEx, or strategic modeling. And really the focus this month has been around strategic modeling. So we have one here that is not around strategic modeling. The rest of them actually are all related to that strat plan. So the first one here is you are now able to add a member to OFS pension plan. So this is a member that will get created underneath your financial model as you walk through your configuration interface, as you if you configure this section of that financial planning process. What that OFS stands for is that literally what it means is Oracle is creating it for that financial statements model. Basically what they've done is they have allowed us to now add children to that member. And it can be helpful specifically within taxes and benefits to kind of add detail. You'll also need to add some detail to some smart lists to kind of keep them in sync. But what it'll do, it'll actually allow you to plan at a lower level of detail around some of those things that are technically handled in your workforce plan type. So you need to have both of these models activated and actually not even both the models, but both of the pieces within each model. You need to have them activated and configured to really leverage this, but essentially this enhancement is going to give those models the ability to plan at a more detailed level around pensions. So these last couple ones are going to be all around strategic modeling. So the first one, very simple. The context menus are supposed to have changed. So we were looking in our test environment this week, and basically underneath that strategic modeling, where it says models and models consolidations, those names were supposed to switch to contain the word view afterwards. Very simple process. We don't see that in our environment. I opened up a ticket with Oracle to ensure that we're looking at this correctly. So we have a ticket open with them. They asked us to clear our caches, and we did that, and it still didn't help in this thing. We know that we have a good understanding that it should be in place just on the bottom left there when we're looking at different documentation around strategic modeling. We actually see that they've renamed it in the documentation, but again, we're simply not seeing it within our interfaces we're working with our application. Again, really a minor thing overall, really not going to impact anyone whether it says models or model view, but that is what that enhancement is related to. So the next thing here is new context menu within strategic modeling. So really this is just to help us navigate as we're doing different things within our strat plan. So in the past, if you wanted to go to an audit trail or do goal seeker or adjust your scenario manager, you essentially would have to click in that cell, and then there would be an action box over on the right after you click in the cell. They just wanted to try to streamline this, make the user experience a little more friendly, and now basically you can just right-click in that cell without actually clicking into it to actually make inputs. You can right-click in that, and that context menu is going to pop up right then and there. So again, nothing major from an enhancement standpoint, but really just a user simplification when it comes to strategic planning. Another thing, again, based purely on user interaction with the system, is you now have the ability to add sub-accounts. So adding sub-accounts would be adding, again, additional detail in your strategic model that you may not currently have. You actually have the ability to paste multiple accounts, sub-accounts at one time. So you can see here, you would simply right-click where you would want to add these sub-accounts, and you would just simply go to paste children. And you would simply, a pop-up will show up, and you simply type in all the different sub-accounts that you're going to want to show up. So you could put in 1, you could put in 2, you could put in 100. All those different lines you want to have show up, you simply click paste. Then you see in the image over to the right, it's actually going to create those sub-account line items right on the fly. Whereas in the past, you would have to add all these sub-accounts one at a time. Basically, they've added the ability for us to do it in bulk, which is really helpful for those of us that need to continue to add sub-accounts to our models as we need to get more detail around our strategic planning. So the second to last piece here is after your model has been created, so if we already have existing strategic models in place, you are actually now able to go in and change your default unit, currency, and decimal places. You can actually do that after it's been created. You don't have to worry about creating a new strategic plan or anything like that. If for whatever reason some of these options that you set when you create that strategic model need to change, it's something we're going to be able to very easily do right from that model. You simply go to the action menu for that model that needs to change. You simply go to properties. You can see here it shows up with a drop-down, or you have the ability to change a number if we're talking about decimals, and simply change that model very quickly and easily without having to go through the setup of almost recreating that. So for whatever reason, some of those things would change, which hopefully is a pretty infrequent activity around changing some of these properties in your strategic plan. We still do have an easy way to pivot if it did come to changing some of those properties. And finally, the last thing here is they've made some upgrades to the reports itself that are created within strategic planning. So for those of us that have configured and enabled strategic modeling, you'll notice that when you create it, you get a lot of different reports that are essentially created for you, just based on information you're putting in from a template standpoint or from a custom model that you're putting together. And essentially what they've done is they've done things to streamline these reports to perform better. You also now have the ability to rearrange where reports are going to show up from an ordering standpoint as far as where you're going to click on them, and it even lets you hide reports that you deem unnecessary for your planning process. One call out here is with this release, when you go in and you check out that model to actually do some strategic planning, it's actually going to take a little longer as it's actually going through this first time, and it's applying some of these upgrades to those different reports. So we strongly recommend that you have an administrator log into all of your strategic models, at least initially here, before you have users going in, and actually save that model afterwards. So literally just go in, open and save. It'll actually save a lot of those properties, and that will it will save the upgrades that they're making to those forms, and that will just help. So as your users are going in and checking out, they don't have that wait time. The wait time is nothing major. It didn't take us more than half a minute to have those updates come into play, but it could be a good one-time thing that your administrator could take care of for your user community. So that was a small release this month. That was everything for both PBCS and EPBCS. We'll finish up here as we usually do with support updates, and these are 3 support updates that we've been communicating for the past year, essentially. The first one being that standard interface is not going to be supported at the end of this year. There's really no reason. I mean, there's more and more functionality every month coming through in the simplified interface that we don't have in the standard interface. We haven't adopted this new simplified interface. We're past due. It's time to jump on that bandwagon and get ready for that at the end of the year. Another thing no longer being supported at the end of the year is that Reporting Studio desktop client. Again, we've been echoing this for months. That web Reporting Studio is essentially the exact same tool, if not the exact same tool. No need to learn a new interface or navigation or how to set up reports, but they're just simply not going to allow login from a desktop client, which I know a lot of us are used to, especially those of us that came from on-prem. So it's essentially just getting familiar with how to access that from your navigator, and after that you're off and running like you have the way you manage your reports with the desktop client. Then finally, going in this month here, on the 22nd, we're no longer allowing for file integration between Oracle Fusion Cloud and PBCS. Data management, again, is allowing that connection between these 2 products. So again, highly recommend anyone that's out there, contact us. ASAP, if you're still using file integrations between these 2 cloud products, we need to figure out quickly how to integrate using data management as a solution, as that's the only supported process going forward. So with that, that's our monthly webinar this month. Like I just said, really a small, pretty uneventful release this month. We're always happy to jump on here. We try to keep it a half hour, no longer than 45 minutes, give you an overview, what's coming through in your environment so you can be well informed and ready to support your user community or ready to support your planning process. And with that, it looks like we, again, don't have any questions this month. So thanks everyone for joining, and we hope to see you again next month as we discuss next month's release.